We begin with developing news in Davenport. Crews have started to take down the partially collapsed downtown apartment building. This is a live look of that right now. 3 people were killed when the exterior of the building gave way 2 weeks ago. There is now a careful process in bringing the building down without causing more damage to nearby structures. And as debris fell, several former tenants watched from afar, telling News 8 they aren't sure what their next steps are. One of those former tenants is Anthony Hicks, a 13-year resident of the building. He says he doesn't know what to do after a shelter in DeWitt could only take him in for a week, but that his heart is with the families of the victims.
I grew up in California, so I'm used to earthquakes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it happens. Things happen. Things happen for a reason. But I don't want to see nobody, like, you know what I'm saying, lose their loved ones.
City officials say it'll take weeks to take the building down. Meanwhile, building owner Andrew Wold pled guilty to a $300 citation from the city of Davenport. The fine is for failure to maintain the building in a safe, sanitary, and structurally sound condition. Wold's lawyer appeared on behalf of his client and Davenport Hotels LLC. However, he was not alone as a small group of protesters gathered outside the courthouse.
Protesters, they're the nerve in the community. You know, it's not our job to, make things happen. It's our job to make people aware that things need to happen. But I'm here today as a mother. You know, my son was a resident of the building. There's no way when you're advocating with a child that when someone theoretically could have killed them if it weren't for sheer luck or grace on his part, that there's no way I wouldn't not show up for court.
Wold's lawyer, Jack O'Brien, said they will pay the fine as soon as it's entered. Another lawsuit has been filed in the wake of the apartment collapse. The owners of 4th Street Nutrition suing Wold and the city of Davenport for damages, quote, caused by the tenants' negligent actions or inactions. This is now the 3rd lawsuit filed so far. Meanwhile, the city of Davenport hosting its State of the City address this afternoon. Mayor Mike Mattson highlighting the city's accomplishments and infrastructure projects, but he also talked about the building collapse. News 8's Joe McCoy was at the address earlier today. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, John. Although not typically the focus of a speech like this, the mayor did address the elephant in the room, the collapsed building that is now being demolished. This event usually looks to highlight the great things the city of Davenport is doing, but this go around, the tragedy of 2 weeks ago loomed overhead.
Davenport's State of the City address noting many of the city's projects as part of it is torn down.
I'm proud to announce, ladies and gentlemen, our mayor, Mr. Mike Mattson.
The mayor bookending his hour-long speech with the topic of the hour.
We've had a tragedy a few weeks ago here in Davenport, specifically in our downtown. 3 wonderful people passed: Brandon Colvin, Ryan Hitchcock, and Daniel Preen.
A moment of silence held for the 3 victims.
I also want to recognize all the residents that have been infected, impacted, and displaced. In particular, Miss Berry, who sustained a life-threatening injury. Our thoughts and prayers, our hearts, are with them.
The mayor's tone at the end of his remarks shifting towards gratitude to the first responders.
I can't thank the partners that were engaged 2 weeks ago on a Sunday evening.
Describing the scene, those first fateful hours.
Firefighters running into that building as rescue teams with all their kit on, knowing that that building could fall, knowing that pieces of concrete can come down at any moment.
Now, focusing on finding answers as the dust settles.
Do we have things to look at moving forward? Of course we do. But that Sunday evening into Monday, in the respective days after, that's what partnerships and people around this community do. They care, and they only care about the people, how to help.
Mayor Mattson declined to speak to the media today, but a couple of overarching things he said was that the city looks to prioritize things that residents want to be implemented, and also that public safety is their #1 priority. John.
All right, thanks, Joe. Now, the mayor also praised the Army Corps of Engineers and city officials for their handling of this year's flood. And we are learning more about the 911 call that dispatched the fire department to the scene a day before the partial building collapse. The city of Davenport says just before 3 p.m. on May 27th, the fire department responded to the building and observed work happening and external shoring in place. Later that day, inspectors say they did not see any bowing of the external shoring. A day later, the building collapsed.